Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I'll be presenting my research on the experience of severe myalgic encephalomyelitis, ME, and occupational participation, a qualitative study prepared for the Australian Occupational Therapy Journal. I'd like to acknowledge the contributions made by my supervisors, Julie and Wendy, as well as Alex, who's just reported the quantitative findings, and Rachel Makepeace, our consumer advisor. I'd also extend thanks to all ACU staff that have helped guide me through my honours journey. So the structure for my presentation today is as follows. I'll start with a study background and design, and then present the study findings and discussion, and conclude with the limitations and implications for practice. So, ME is an acquired neurological disorder with unclear etiology. Most body systems are impacted, including physical, cognitive, and psychological functioning. Post-exertional neuroimmune exhaustion is the key symptom, which is a type of fatigue not alleviated by rest. This study adheres to the international consensus criteria, which was developed to help distinguish ME from other fatigue syndromes like CFS. Symptoms range from mild to very severe. 6,500 Australians approximately live with the severe form that confines them mostly to their homes and beds. The ICF is an international classification system used by many health professionals to help, including OT, to help understand the impact illness has on health, disability and functioning. It is the underpinning theory used to answer my research question at the activity and participation level and the environment. This study is needed because there is a lack of publications on severe ME and none targeted participation and none within the Australian context. So the purpose of this study was to expand the knowledge base for OT to improve services, and the aim was to understand the experience of severe ME and its impact on participation, specifically for the severe group who are difficult to reach in research due to the unpredictability and the severity of their symptoms. For study design, a qualitative phenomenological approach was selected to help explore the lived experience of one's socially constructed reality, which suits topics that are relatively unknown. Participants were recruited through online social media, so adults who were over 18 that met the criteria for severe ME were invited to participate in an individual semi-structured interview via Microsoft Teams. So from March to July, data was collected from 10 participants. One interview was excluded as the research team felt that they met the criteria for moderate rather than severe ME. Data was then stored securely in Cloud Store, and participants were then allocated a pseudonym to help protect their privacy. I followed the 6 phases of reflective thematic analysis. This flexible technique allowed for the active construction of the themes from the data. The correct checklist was adhered to, and strategies used to improve the trustworthiness included maintaining a reflexive journal to improve confirmability, member checking to enhance the credibility, and an audit trail of the analysis decisions made to ensure the findings were dependable. Now I present the findings. An overarching theme, my circumstances obstruct my life's path, reflected the restrictions imposed by severe ME. 4 main themes and sub-themes were then developed in sequence to describe a typical person's illness journey. Themes 1 to 2 related to the ICF environmental factors, while 3 to 4 were more concerned with activities and participation, which now I'll describe each. Stigma and neglect referred to the challenges in finding adequate health care, which was considered a barrier in Australia. Even with a diagnosis, the response from Francis's GP was, "We can't help you with that," while Eleanor was told, "You just need to push through," rather than receiving treatments which one would expect. Participants also experienced judgment from others in the broader community, as the illness can appear invisible. At her local shops, Cheryl said, "I feel guilty sitting down. People look at me like, but there's nothing wrong with you." Forced into the severe ME bubble represented the shrinking physical and social worlds. Life mainly happened at home with assistive technology and modifications to conserve energy and to accommodate sensory sensitivities. As Kai explains, I have no windows, light or noise in my room. Most participants preferred socialising online within the ME community, which Hamish found supportive. Friendships are hard when you can't be physically present, and in online groups, I don't have to constantly explain myself. Life becomes scheduled refers to the lack of choice and control over activities, with pacing being the only way to participate in daily life. Having to pace means forced rest and switching your mind off, which Hamish started days ahead of an appointment. And essential tasks were prioritised. As Davina explained, I can see a doctor every 6 weeks, but I can't get everything done, like no dentist and no hairdresser. The final theme describes the participant's journey through grief and loss prior to accepting, finding a new identity and life with severe ME. Indigo grieved the loss of work and the ability to socialise and loss of independence. However, simultaneously, participants all felt they were lucky in some way. As Jasmine explained, getting the NDIS and disability housing, I know how lucky I am because there are people like me who are homeless. So, what does the literature say? This study confirmed what was known about ME and stigma, but added an idea of a role reversal where participants were frustrated at having to educate healthcare professionals about the illness, about treatments, and about the importance of telerehabilitation. It has been reported that people benefit from supportive devices. However, it was found that those recently diagnosed were just considering assistive technology as they were uncertain how it or how OTs could help, which highlights a critical role for OT to bridge this gap for clients, to self-manage their illness and to slow disease progression. Falk-Widberg reported that people had fewer social connections, and participants in this study reasoned that they became intentionally more selective with who they spent their time and limited energy with. Bartlett demonstrated that the range of occupations narrows with ME over time. And as central to OT principles, we all know that doing things enhances well-being. And what we now know with severe ME is that activities are mostly sedentary and passive, reduced in frequency, such as showering weekly, in duration, standing for only a few minutes at a time, and performed mostly in bed. It was further noted that leading a productive life was most important, and people found ways to contribute to society, such as a website content developer or contributing to disability policy reform. The surprising finding that people felt lucky could be a coping strategy, or compared to others, they might think, I'm doing quite well, and therefore might explain Ballinas's results that less than 80% of people diagnosed with ME seek support. So the final section looks at limitations and implications. We address the risk in self-reported diagnosis by screening for severe ME with a questionnaire. The interview questions were co-designed and pilot tested with Rachel, our consumer advisor, to ensure sensitive language and the interview format was appropriate to avoid pen. And the implications are, given the absence of specific treatments for severe ME, this study emphasises that the critical role for OT in is to provide compensation strategies, adapting the physical environment and occupations to conserve energy and enhance participation. OTs can also provide education for the client about their illness and their family and friends, and advocate for an awareness of invisible illnesses to address the stigma. Future studies could involve a carer's perspective to speak on behalf of those who are unable to interview. In conclusion, this study proposes that occupational participation restrictions experienced by those living with severe ME in Australia are due to the absence of clear healthcare pathways. Unlike other illnesses where a diagnosis results in treatment and support, people with ME often face stigma and neglect. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions? Oh, you. Oh, hello.
I was interested when I saw some of your interviews were as long as 140 minutes, and obviously you've been describing how any a big component of that is fatigue. Is there anything you found you had to consider during those interviews to sort of support the participants?
Yeah.
Given the condition?
Yep. So initially, I forwarded the interview questions using plain language a couple of weeks ahead of the scheduled time to allow the person time to formulate their questions, their answers. And I also offered it at a time that suited them. So there was lots of backwards and forwards negotiating because everyone had a different sleeping pattern and schedule that they kept to. So some of them were quite late in the evening, to be honest, because people with ME seem to have a reversed sleep cycle. And the other thing that I did also was some people straight up just said, I need to have it on 2 different days, maybe a week apart, so they had time to recover, and we just had short 30-minute sessions. But one person who said they have no problem cognitively with fatigue went for 140 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
So that was a long one. Yeah, that's it. Anyone else?
So is ME progressive in that it will get worse, or is ME something that if you've got the right support, not only could life be better, but it is something that resolves over time?
It's my understanding that there is currently no cure that exists, but if they are given access to appropriate support early on, early intervention is the best preventative, that they can slow down the progression of the disease and perhaps lead a higher quality of life for a lot longer, because a lot of the participants said, if I only knew now what I knew back then, I would not have pushed myself as much and sort of sped up the process. So unfortunately, and not many people do recover. I think that's the biggest distinction you could make between ME and CFS, because some people with chronic fatigue seem to get better. And it also, I guess, brings into the long COVID condition as well. So lots of those post-viral fatigue syndromes, they're all similar, yet ME seems to be quite unique. The distinguishing factor is PEN. So if you don't have that, it's not ME.
Is there causative? Any studies on causative? I know they don't have any etiology. Are there any causation studies done?
I think, like any syndrome, most of the studies would suggest that it's genetics, environmental factors. Most people talk about having a significant viral illness or bacterial or some illness that wipes them out, and they just never seem to get back to where they were. So probably a collection of factors. Women, it's gendered. Women seem to be diagnosed more frequently in the 40 to 50 year age bracket. Not quite sure why. And one participant kindly said that he felt that's why there wasn't as much research. Because women's health is not taken as seriously. So very controversial. Yeah, so is that all? Yeah.
Is there a typical age range for the onset of diagnosis? I know
Yeah. Yes, yes, that, so an older age group. And that could also be because people can manage quite well for a long time with a mild version. So with a mild version, you may be able to go to work or go to uni or school and then come back and do absolutely nothing else. So there is something wrong, but no one really knows why. So I guess it's also a diagnosis of elimination. So I think the quickest time that you can get diagnosed is within 6 months. So lots of other things are ruled out first. That's if you find a clinician who's willing to take you on and get a specialist, like a rheumatologist, I think is needed for diagnosis. Having said that, out of the 9 participants that were included in the study, 3 were in their 20s. So, yeah. Is that all?